All right, guys, it's time for happy hour. Monday is over. It's time to kick off week 9. Guys, can you believe it's week 9? Holy cow. But hey, Monday's over. We made it through Monday. Woo! We can forget about that. It is time to get the party started. Get something in your glass. Join me. Time to, pump up the energy a little bit. I don't know about you guys, but Monday, gotta shake it off a little. Gotta get a little pumped up. But you guys know the drill. By the time we are in week 9, I need to know where you are, what's in your glass. If you're a first timer, welcome. Make sure you put 3 stars in your comment because we want to shout you out. We're gonna give folks a little bit of time to get in here, so get something in your glass. Say hi in the comments. Woo! Well, I personally am here in sunny West Austin. 94 degrees out, y'all. Summer is here for sure. Mark, you are on the banks of the Pedernales River. Holy cow. I'm having some 18 high estate Malbec. A little jealous that you're at the river, not going to lie, but also love that you are joining happy hour from the river. That's incredible. Tiffany, woo! Tiffany, you have a question for me. If I forget, make sure to remind me. We're going to get to that in a little bit. They're both very good. The 18 is a little less wild than the 19. That's basically the answer you need, but it's still just as delicious. And is probably came out with a little more sugar, but probably fully dry now. All right, Alta, Frisco, Skeleton Key White, League City, drinking Sangria Rosé is Pam, Rinda. I love it. Catherine in High, drinking a Lazy Paloma. No fresh grapefruit, just a grapefruit sparkling water. Hey, I'm all about the shortcuts, especially in quarantine. Any shortcut you can make in cooking and making drinks, especially when you're drinking alcohol and you just want something in your glass. That's what I'm talking about. Alan, my Toronto friends, having some Sancerre. Alan, I'm so glad you said that. I just remembered I put a Sancerre in the fridge over the weekend, and it's ready and cold for me. So thanks for that reminder. Pam, Sarah in San Antonio, drinking French Connection Roussan. We love our friends over at French Connection. Love it, love it. Eric and Asha, checking in from San Antonio, having High Cross Syrah. That's what we're drinking today, just a little bit older than yours. Alan in Sugarland, drinking ice cold Dos Equis in your River Green Yeti Rambler. Hey, that's what I'm all about. Guys, did you know that when it's really cold and you're really hot, when you drink a Dos Equis from a can, it actually tastes like candy? I don't know why. This is a proven fact. And it's time to kick off happy hour, guys. Brian's in Northwest Austin having some Cab Sauv. Good to see you. Crystal, good to see you. Drinking some Pacifico. I love it. Sounds like a Mexican beer kind of day. That makes a lot of sense. We talked about drinking beer and acidic things as well in hot weather. But I'm having some Syrah, and it's still really good. But it's mainly because I put like a 15 to 20 minute chill on it. Guys, even for bigger red wines, it can go a long way about bringing it to proper cellar temperature. If this was just regular room temperature, like a 68, not nearly as good when it's like 60 to 65. Okay, just saying. All right, so let's dive in today. We've got a special guest from our William Chris family. I am going out to you, Mary. Hi, friend.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you doing today?
Good. I'm drinking Lostro Mourvedre and out on my porch. Quite hot.
I love it. Is it the recent release? Is that like 17 Lost Straw?
Yep, it is. Drinks very, very nicely.
I mean, I stinking love Lost Straw. It might be my favorite single vineyard Mourvedre that we do. Maybe. I have to think about that. But I'm glad to drink a Mourvedre because for those of you who didn't hear, it's Mourvedre Mania week over at William Chris because we are doing a Mourvedre only virtual tasting this coming Saturday. And so it's all Mourvedre all the time. And I'm really stoked that you're having some. So cheers to you, friend. Good to see your face.
Good to see you.
Guys, it's so great for our friends to be able to see our tasting room, folks. Y'all know Mary, our British accented Wonder Woman of wine herself, who works in the tasting room. We are going to be so excited to welcome you back when the time's right. I know that there have been some wine club members out at the winery being able to see Mary on the regular. She's been out there, but we cannot wait to have you guys back out there and being able to see Mary in person and hearing that British accent in person when the time is right. Well, Mary, we're going to bring you back for the Wine Nerd section. So hopefully you're going to have some great questions for me like you always do in wine school. I'll look forward to seeing you there. Cheers, friend.
Okay, cheers.
All right, friends. There is no better way to kick off a Monday evening than drinking some wine, at least for me. So let's dig in to the William Chris wine of the day. I am actually having what is a very rare wine at William Chris. If you are lucky enough to have your hands on a bottle of this or have ever had it, High Cross Syrah from the 2014 vintage. Guys, this vintage of High Cross Syrah saw late hail that decimated this vineyard. And so only 2 barrels of High Cross Syrah were made in this year. So very rare wine. So first of all, not a lot was made. Second of all, it's a 2014 vintage. So now we're talking going on 6 years old. There's not a lot of this around. So let's talk about what it smells and tastes like if you're lucky enough to have this library wine. I'm actually shocked when I opened this and tasted it to make sure the bottle wasn't corked, how fresh this wine is for being 6 years old. A lot of times Syrah will start to take on these savory, meaty notes with age. And at 6 years, this wine has time to go. It is still very fruit forward, and very fresh, and hasn't taken on a lot of those tertiary notes that Syrah is famous for in its age. And so if you do have a bottle of this, you can actually age it even longer if you'd like. I mean, it smells and tastes great right now. Like, don't get me wrong. It's not this wine is not incomplete in any way. It's just a lot fresher than I expected. You know, a lot of times with 6-year-old wine, you don't have freshness the way it is here. And if you open an older bottle and it still has this much freshness, that's a good indication that it still has time left. It can still age even more. And so it's important to think about. Red fruit for sure is there, but for me, the predominance is on darker fruits here. Things like plum show up for me, maybe a little bit of blueberry. So dark fruits up front, red fruit secondary, and a little bit of like a violet note across the top. It's a little floral. I think I reminded you guys of this little tip from us blind tasting somms. You know, we get tested with blind tasting on our exams. And one thing I learned from my friends, my colleagues in the industry, they taught me when I was first learning, a lot of times floral notes sit across the top of the glass. And so before you stick your schnoz all the way in there, or if you've already done it, go ahead and just lightly run your nose across the top of your glass to see if there are any floral notes. And unfortunately for me, there's a lot of blooming things behind me and around me. It's spring, y'all. Spring has sprung, and I am smelling a lot of what's going on in this world behind me. But if I got my nose in there, I can pick up a little bit of a floral note. Okay, guys, time for me to stop talking about this. Well, maybe food, because we always talk about food, and I'm kind of hungry. I'm going barbecued spare ribs right here. I'm going roasted duck. Or maybe some Asian dishes. If you guys have ever had plum sauce with your Asian dishes, oh man, this would go so well with some plum sauce. So think about that. I'm gonna get you hungry for some Asian food. I know you guys are gonna go get some takeout somewhere. Oh yeah, I mean, honestly, like I'm surprised and shocked that this wine is actually lower in alcohol. It says 12.8 on the label. You know, it's not a big, hefty Syrah. This is a more elegant Syrah. It is fresh and it has time to age. And that's a beautiful thing. So I feel lucky because it's so limited that I'm getting to drink a library wine right now. But cheers to all you guys. Happy hour. If there's any of this more out in the world, go find it. See if there's some 2014 High Cross Syrah in a library somewhere. Guys, I am taking over the Wine Nerd section again today. You guys, we're going to be mixing more of that Wine Nerd section back in. That's taught by me. As we continue to bring on special guests, my friends in the industry to teach you. My friend Tim will be here tomorrow from a wine bar in Houston to teach you guys. But today we are going to learn about the Jura. Okay. So this is a wine region, first of all, but I'm going to teach you the 3 things you need to know. Cause you know, I'm all about 3 things. So while I am doing that, I'm going to put this up on the screen so you guys know you can send me questions about the Jura. Bam. Okay. Let's first talk about where it's located before we jump into the 3 things you need to know, okay? So I'm going to share my screen here. Y'all see this giant map of the French wine regions. Again, shout out to Madeline over at Wine Folly for creating great resources. So there's this giant map, and over to the right side, you see Burgundy and Beaujolais. And then let's zoom in next to Burgundy. You see how Jura is nestled between Burgundy and Switzerland. And it's right here in the foothills. And before I get ahead of myself, the first thing you need to know today, that Jura is a tiny secret tucked into the hills. Okay? Tiny secret tucked into the hills. And I'm not saying giraffe, Brian. I appreciate the humor. Guys, this Jura is the name of the region. And the first thing you need to know about it, it's a tiny secret tucked into the hills. And what do I mean by that? First of all, it's super tiny. It's one of France's smallest production regions, okay? So it isn't necessarily the tiniest in terms of geographic area, but the amount of land under vine is super tiny. You know, gosh, back in the late 1800s, right about the 1900, the turn of the 20th century, the 1800s becoming the 1900s, there were a lot of things that hit Jura hard, including phylloxera. You know, that vine louse that wiped out much of the world's vineyards. And so it is now 1/10 the size it used to be in terms of grape growing. And so it is one of France's smallest production of any region. So that's the first thing to know. So it's tiny, and it's tucked into the hills, the foothills of the Jura Mountains. Do you guys know the Jurassic period was named that because the limestone that they studied in these mountains was the first time anybody studied rocks from that period. And so the Jurassic period is named after the Jura Mountains. Guys, that's a little bit of wine nerdery you didn't expect to get today. A little history wrapped into your wine nerdery, okay? So it's a tiny secret tucked into the hills. And why is it a secret? It's a secret because in the Somm world, we have been keeping this secret from you. We have known about this since we started studying wine. We started drinking the wines. And we don't tell a ton of people because there's not a lot of production. And if you are nerdy enough to know what producers to go get, what the grapes are, we've been keeping this nice little secret. I might get thrown out of some blind tasting groups that I'm a part of because I am sharing this widely and broadly with all of you. Jura, guys, has some incredible wine, and it's a Somm secret. So the word is out. Let's talk about if you're going to go and find out about it and order it and buy it and drink it, what you need to be looking for. So the second thing I want you to know are the grapes. And Bill, thank you for setting me up for this. What varieties come from Jura? And real quick, I want to let you know, and I'm going to put this up on the screen so you'll have them. The grapes, the red ones, you'll notice first is Pinot Noir, and in the white, first is Chardonnay. You're like, okay, it's close to Burgundy. Burgundy's famous for Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. Those aren't surprising, D. What's the big deal? It's the other grapes that you see on your screen that you're gonna want to know and learn. And these are indigenous varieties to this area. It's Poulsard, also known as Poulsard. So you can see it 2 ways. Trousseau. And guys, Trousseau is so hot right now in a lot of these like new agey California winemakers, and especially in the natural wine world. Lots of people out in Cali are growing and making delicious Trousseau. So you're going to see that pop up in the domestic market a lot more too. So Poulsard, Trousseau, and this last one, guys, I called right before we launched, I called my friend Julie. So Julie, if you're watching, here goes nothing. This is a really hard French word to pronounce, this last grape that you see on the screen. I want to be clear. We are not talking about, let's make sure I can do this right, Sauvignon Blanc, okay? We're not talking about Sauvignon Blanc, guys, okay? This is like the super Americanized Texan variety. This is not Sauvignon Blanc, okay? This is, and I'm really going to try here, Savagnin. So my friend Julie, who lived in Paris for a while and worked for Fat Tire Tours, and speaks great French and can pronounce French very well. She was like, this is one of those impossible words that like doesn't have a good English equivalent. And so it's okay to just say like Savagnin. And I was like, nye? Say Savagnin, like it's real nasally, okay? It is not the same thing as Sauvignon Blanc, okay? Sauvignon Blanc, right, has Sauvignon. It's very different. These are different grapes. They are going to taste different in your glass. So this is my advice to you, do not order by just saying the name. Don't be like, can I get a glass of Savagnin? Okay, because they're going to think you are talking about Sauvignon Blanc. You need to clarify and say, I want this really awesome grape from Jura called Savagnin, and I need to make sure that you are not serving me Sauvignon Blanc. Okay, if you have a good Somm or you're at a wine shop, they know what they're talking about. Start out by saying, hey, I'm looking for a white wine from the Jura region, and they're going to be heading you in the right direction. But these 3 grapes are all from this region. They're all unique to this region. There are a few other people that are trying to start growing them in other places, but man, this is what us Somms have all been keeping secret from all of you, and you want to try them, okay? Poulsard is usually an easy drinking red, fresh, chillable, go get it. Trousseau makes the most serious reds, but it's still lighter in body. The color is going to look lighter. Reminds me a lot of the qualities we love about really high-end Pinot Noir. They're ageable. They have good acid and structure. And let's actually talk about that as a whole. These grapes, because they're further inland, they're at the foothills of some mountains, it is going to be much colder there just in general than in the rest of the world. So their winters get stinking really cold. And during the growing season, this colder weather helps them maintain what in the grapes? Maintains acidity in the grapes. Remember, lower temperatures mean grapes are able to maintain more acid. So across the board, these Pinots, these Chardonnays even are going to take on a different character than their Burgundy neighbors. It's also important to note here that the Chardonnay that they make is oxidative in nature. And this oxidative thing is actually one of the things you need to remember about Jura. So let's talk about thing number 3. And you guys can keep posting questions. I'm going to come back to clarify some things I think I see in the comments. Thing number 3, okay, is, let me make sure I can say this, Vin Juane. Vin Juane. Okay, this is French pronunciation. I practiced this on my phone with my friend Julie. In English, most people call this Vin Juane or Vin Juane. Okay, y'all know jaundice, right? Jaundice, that is like when your skin turns yellow. So it's from that same root word meaning yellow in French. Okay, but this is Vin Juane. Okay, meaning yellow wine. It's almost always made from that grape that is really hard to say, Savagnin. That's purposely oxidized and aged in barrels for 6+ years while it develops a veil of protective yeast similar to fino sherry. So you guys remember, if you age wine in barrels, you're going to have an area at the top. The ullage, I believe, is the name for that little window that's not filled with wine. And over time, wine evaporates very slowly. And you start to get more and more and more oxygen in the top of that barrel unless you top up. Which, if you're reductive winemaking like we are at William Chris, we are aggressively topping up. So like no oxygen or very little oxygen is interacting with that wine. Well, for Vin Juane, they do not top up. And so that wine starts to creep further and further, and more oxygen starts interacting with this white wine. So you get this very nutty, fuller bodied, deeper colored, because white wine with oxygen and age takes on a deeper, richer golden color. And almost this almost curried note, I think, is a way to talk about it. It is a totally different wine. It is not fino sherry. It does not taste like normal dry white wine. It is its own thing, and you absolutely should try it. It is an acquired taste. You need to be ready for something totally out in left field. But Jura is famous for this style of wine, okay? Doesn't mean all the Jura wines taste like this. It's just if it's called Vin Juane, okay? So you don't have to worry about everything tasting super weird and oxidative and like sherry, okay? Because I know that can be, you know, an issue for folks. Brian's got a really good question about Vin Juane, so I'm going to take it right now. Brian's asking, does Vin Juane result in lower alcohol content? It's a good question. I don't think it's going to be lower than any other. They do allow these grapes to get ripe enough to make wine. And so we're probably talking about the 13-ish range. It is not like sherry. Sherry is fortified, so they add spirit to sherry, right? They do not add spirit to Vin Juane, okay? It's going to fully ferment without the addition of it's not going to be fortified. And so you're talking about a normal still white wine that's basically been purposefully oxidized under this veil of yeast, okay? So it's not going to be especially low alcohol or especially high. It's going to be very normal. And I would guess in the range of like 13 and a half, but don't quote me on that because I haven't had Vin Juane in a long time. And so I would need to go double check that. I love that question. Okay, guys, those are 3 things that you need to know about Jura. We could spend literally all day. What I really want you to know at the end of the day is there are these really cool grapes, Poulsard, Trousseau, and Savagnin, that I still don't know how to pronounce, and you probably don't either. And I'm not sure pretty much any sommelier who doesn't actually speak French as a native tongue does either. So it's okay. Go check these wines out. They're very cool. They're very acidic, which again is great in this warmer weather. That also makes them great for, wait for it, food. Okay. So when you are ready to explore a new region, this is where you need to go. All right. I'm going to bring my friend Mary back up here and I'm going to look through some other questions, see if Mary has a question for me. Mary, talk to me about your love or knowledge of or questions for things Jura.
I actually knew nothing about Jura. And my question for you would be, so you've got a lot of mountains, you've got lots of kind of cold winds at night. How does are there any special things about the geography that allow it to ripen? You know, stones, things like that.
Ah, what a great question. Thank you, Mary. So just to restate the question, guys, like a lot of times in cooler climates, grapes can have issues getting fully ripe. And so there have to be considerations in the vineyard and selection of particular vineyard sites that allow the grapes to get fully ripe so that they can make wine out of it. So perfect question. Yes. So one of the first things everybody needs to know is that when they are selecting vineyard sites in this region, they are going to select vineyard sites that are lower on the slopes, right? Because the further up the slopes, the higher the elevation, and potentially the colder the temperature, right? And all of those things that come along with like it being harder to get to. And so I would say, first of all, lower on the slopes. Second of all, because we're in the Northern Hemisphere, we want south-facing slopes if we can find them, okay? So you're gonna think about, remember, if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, the equator is to your south. So better exposure to sunlight is going to give you better chances at proper ripening. And so lower on the slopes, south-facing vineyards. And then, yes, there are, and again, this is going to depend on the particular sites and whatnot, but there is a heavy amount of limestone here, hence the whole like Jurassic period and all of that kind of stuff. So those rocks can actually reflect back sunlight and provide some heat. But I know this is going to be weird. This is not like Châteauneuf-du-Pape, where you have the galettes, those round stones that a lot of times the vines sit closer to the ground so they can kind of soak up some of that extra heat. They actually raise the vines in this region because they're actually worried about frost. And the closer those vines are to the ground, the higher the risk for frost. And so they actually keep these vines trained a little bit higher off the ground for this ripening reason and protection from frost. So great question, Mary. Thank you for that. Always coming through with great wine nerd questions. I'm going to check in. Let's see if we have any other. Eric is asking, what is the best way to get some wines from Jura? Seems rare. Any place local or best to try and order online? Guys, this is going to take a good wine department at whatever place. If, you know, I would say shop independent if you can. There are great independent wine shops all over the place. Austin Wine Merchant's one of them here locally. I know that they have some Jura wines. Heck, I've even seen Jura wines in Central Market. I've seen Jura wines in Whole Foods. They don't have as big of a selection, but they are there. Some of my other favorite spots to buy online that aren't William Chris, because we don't have Jura wine that we make at William Chris, would include Verve Wine. It's out of New York City. One of the guys from one of the Somm movies, his name is Dustin. He runs that, and he has a pretty wide selection. I will also tell you, if you're into the whole like natural wine movement that we've been talking about a little bit, any place that has a good natural wine selection will likely have some Jura wines. This natural wine kind of movement or theme or whatever you want to call it that's been happening in some places has brought a lot more people to this region. So Jura is kind of an up and coming fun. A lot of people are starting to talk about it more. So I would get in now, start to learn your producers, and figure out which ones you like. And if you're a Chardonnay or Pinot Noir drinker from other places, try a Jura Pinot or a Jura Chardonnay and think about how they're different. I think that's always a fun thing to do, is get a taste for the region by trying a grape you're already familiar with, in addition to exploring new grapes. You guys, if you hit me up individually via email or whatever, I'm happy to give you some more recommendations about like where do I find Jura wines if you haven't already gotten that information here. So I do have a quiz question. You know, anytime that I run the wine nerd section, there's going to be a quiz question for the day. Just saying, you got to watch out here. Like, this could be a tricky one. One of the important things we talked about were the grape varieties. So which of the following is not a grape grown in the Jura? Okay. Cheers, guys. Happy hour. Let's see if you guys can get this right. Man, this Syrah is tasting really nice and fresh still. Even what, almost, 30 minutes after I opened it. Super, super fresh. Okay, guys, y'all are doing awesome. Y'all didn't fall for the like typical answer is always D trick. The answer is indeed B. Remember, Savagnin is not the same thing as Sauvignon Blanc, okay? So B is the correct answer. They do not grow Sauvignon Blanc in Jura, okay? Well done, guys. The answer is B, and there's a lot of you who got this one right today. I love it. I'm going to bring Mary back up here. We are going to play... I'm going to actually, Mary's going to pick the category for me. Mary, we are going to play this or that to finish out today. Do you want to do sports, music, alcohol, or movies?
Oh, goodness. Movies.
Or TV. Movies. Okay.
Movies.
We didn't already do this one, I hope. I've got my running list here, and I don't think we did this one. Oh, no, I think we did. I got to switch it up.
Favorite wine movies?
No, we can't do that one. Okay, I'm actually going to do TV instead of movies. This is my backup. Okay, guys, this or that. Mary's up for it. Let's do this or that. Guys, I've been a little nostalgic for some older TV. All this stuff that I've been streaming just like is not scratching the itch. So I need to know from all of you, this or that, Friends or Seinfeld. Okay, Mary, I'm gonna give you some time to think about it, pull you off the screen. I need to know from you guys, Friends or Seinfeld. And you can only have one, and you can only bring one back with all the same people and the same points of their career and the same humor, same storylines. What was the best? Oh my goodness, guys. Friends or Seinfeld? And I gotta know why. I see a lot of people voting. Okay, I see Brian's all about Seinfeld. Kate says Friends. Captain's all about Seinfeld, hands down my favorite. Renda says Friends. Pam says Friends, period. Brian says because Seinfeld is the best stories that I can relate to. Jerry Lynn says super quotable Seinfeld. So Bill says Seinfeld because it's nothing, because it's about nothing. I love that. Terry says Seinfeld indeed. Sarah says Friends. Not nerdy enough to appreciate Seinfeld. Bummer. I don't feel like you had to be nerdy to appreciate. I mean, I'm nerdy, so I appreciate it. I mean, I don't know. I liked both these shows. One of them I watched like pretty much religiously. The other I only kind of tuned in like right at the end because it was like a big deal. It was going to be the last episode and big things were happening. And that might be Alan, my Toronto buddy, saying Seinfeld's like life on TV. I love it. Man, guys, this is so split, guys. Elise in here with Kramer. I'm loving it. Leah's like 1,000 times over Seinfeld. It's way funnier. Okay, guys, I have to let you know, and this is a little bit of a confession, I never really watched much Friends. It just never scratched the itch for me. And I like only tuned in at the very end for like the last episode because like everybody and their mom was doing it. You know, it's kind of like Game of Thrones, you know, like I had to tune in. Now I did go back and like get into the last few seasons of Game of Thrones and all that jazz. I got you. So don't blow me up in the comments about Game of Thrones, okay? But with Friends, I mean, it just never, they're fun and friendly, maybe, but Seinfeld was gold. Every episode, every time, the characters you fall in love with, the dialogue, the dynamics of the friendships, and yes, Elise, Kramer. Guys, talk about a character who is a caricature of a human. It's just, and I'm going to agree here, it is just funnier. It is just more enjoyable. And I can just unplug my brain and drink it in. Seinfeld is like a drug, like a good fine wine in my glass when I just need to not think too much and want to laugh and smile. And I love it so much. So guys, I'm sorry to break it to all you Friends folks out there, but like, you were wrong. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, sort of. I'm going to bring Mary back up. She's going to be thinking about a cheers for us, but you guys know I have important these 3 things to share with you because number 1, it is Mooved Mania this week. So we have 3 things like we always do. Number 1 is that, and make sure this actually goes through so you can see it all. It's in the comments, so I'm going to go one by one. We are doing a virtual tasting for the first time ever. We are going to have 4 wines of the same vintage. They're all 2017, I believe. Oh, I hope I'm not misquoting. And they're all the same grape, Mourvèdre. Okay. It is not Mourvèdre. And you are going to get to learn how differences in soil and location and vineyard management affect what ends up in your glass, because all these grapes were grown in the same year and they're all the same grape. That's a horizontal. It's called a horizontal tasting. Okay. That's freaking rad. I have been wanting to do a tasting like this for so long, basically since I got hired by William Chris. So I'm over the moon about this virtual tasting this week, and you should be too. And if you haven't ordered yours, go freaking do it. And if you want it on your doorstep for Saturday, like, you need to make sure you're going to add an extra 2 bottles, and you're going to need to make sure that you order it today, because, you know, shipping's a little crazy right now. Go get it today to ensure it's there by Saturday. Otherwise, you can go get it. And this is another important piece. Curbside is still open. You can go get the wines at curbside. So if you don't order online today, go pick it up curbside. Number 2, library. Apparently they added some new cool wines. That's where I got this one. 2014 High Cross Syrah. If you want some cool library wines, it is there. The link is there. Go check it out. And yes, if that is for members. So if you're not a member, you know that while we are still, our tasting room is still not open officially, then you can still get in the wine club now if you go onto the website. So got to make that happen if you want our library wines. Last but not least, tomorrow I'm going to be right here, 18 Skeleton Key Cab, and my friend Tim from Camerata in Houston is going to be here for the Wine Nerd section as our special guest. So Mary, cheers us out. What are we cheersing to today?
Okay, I have to just say, anybody who has trouble saying Mourvèdre, less Vedra, I prefer Mourvèdre.
I love it. You heard it from Mary first.
There you go. So the cheer, I said it was going to be for our William Chris family, but you know what? We've been talking about different communities that are really hurting. Let's say a cheer for all those people who've either had coronavirus or even are afraid they're going to get it. You know, it's a tough time right now. So it
is. I appreciate that, Mary. Cheers. Yeah. Thank you for being here. And thank you to all of you guys. Cheers. It's the end of Monday. See you right here tomorrow at 5 o'clock.
There you go.
Mm, 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 mm.